The room felt staged. Not just quiet, prepared. Zara Vale noticed it the moment she walked in. Her father sat too straight. Her mother had papers lined up perfectly. And her younger sister, Ellen, was sitting in Zara's usual chair. That alone told her everything. Sit, her father said. No greeting. No warmth. Zara pulled out a chair without breaking eye contact. What's this about? Her mother slid a thick document across the table. We've made some decisions. Decisions. Zara didn't touch the papers yet. About what? The future, her father said. That word felt heavy. Zara opened the file. The first page hit her like cold water. Transfer of ownership. She flipped to the next page. Then the next. Every asset, every account, every property, all of it transferred to Ellen. Zara looked up slowly. No one looked surprised. You're serious, she said. Yes, her mother replied. Zara's eyes moved to her sister. Ellen avoided her gaze. You're giving her everything? Zara asked. Her father nodded once. It's the right move. Zara leaned back, studying their faces. Not one of them looked unsure. That was the worst part. My name is Zara Vale. I'm 31 years old. And that was the moment my family erased me, clean, legal, and permanent. I read every line again, carefully. Not because I hoped it would change, but because I needed to understand how far they went. This includes the business? I asked. Yes. The properties? Yes. I swallowed slowly. All accounts. My mother nodded. Everything is being consolidated. Consolidated. Clean word for something ugly. I flipped another page. My chest tightened. My grandmother's house is listed here, I said. That was left to me. Silence. Then my father spoke. It's part of the restructure. That wasn't yours to restructure. It is now. The way he said it, final, dismissive, told me arguing wouldn't matter. I looked at Ellen. I didn't plan this, she said quietly. But she didn't reject it. That told me more than her words. A pen sat beside the papers. Waiting. You need my signature, I said. It avoids complications, my mother replied. Of course it did. I picked it up. Not because I agreed, but because I understood something they didn't. They thought this moment made me powerless. They had no idea what they just removed. I didn't sign immediately. I needed one thing first. Honesty. Say it clearly, I said. Why her? My father leaned back slightly. Ellen needs stability. I held his gaze. And I don't. You're capable, my mother said quickly. You always have been. There it was. Not love. Not fairness. Convenience. You're saying I'll survive without it, I said. Yes, my father answered. No hesitation. That almost impressed me. I let out a slow breath. So, all the years I spent fixing your business, that doesn't matter? It does, my mother said. But this is different. Different. Everything important always is. I nodded once. Say the real reason, I said quietly. They didn't. Not a single word. That silence said everything. They trusted her comfort more than they respected my effort. I looked down at the papers again, then back at them. Okay, I said. No anger. No raised voice. That made them relax. They thought I was accepting it. They didn't realize I was stepping out of something permanently. I signed. The pen didn't shake. That surprised even me. The sound of it against paper felt louder than it should have. Final. I closed the folder and pushed it back across the table. That's it? My mother asked, almost confused. That's it, I said. They expected resistance. Emotion. Something they could manage. I gave them nothing. Upstairs, I packed quickly. I didn't need much. Just what belonged to me, and even that felt like a technicality now. At the back of my drawer was a small envelope. My grandmother's handwriting. I opened it carefully. Inside was a note I had read 100 times. Asterisk, you see things others miss. That will matter one day. Asterisk. I folded it and slipped it into my bag. Downstairs, no one stopped me. No one followed. That told me everything I needed to know. At the door, I paused. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to remember exactly how this felt.
Clear. Cold.
Unavoidable. I stepped outside without looking back. Some people break when they lose everything. I didn't. I paid attention. The silence after I left was louder than anything that happened in that house.
No calls.
No messages. Nothing. It was clean. Intentional. I rented a small place across the city. Functional. Temporary. A reset point. That night, I opened my laptop and started organizing everything I knew. Not memories. Data. Clients I managed.
Deals I saved.
Patterns I noticed. Because while they owned everything on paper, they didn't understand how any of it actually worked. I did. I knew which clients trusted the company and which trusted me. I knew which partnerships were already unstable. And I knew exactly how fast confidence could disappear. A notification popped up. A public announcement. New leadership. Ellen Vale, now in control. I read it twice. The tone was confident.
Polished. Wrong.
I leaned back, thinking it through. They believed control meant security. It doesn't. Understanding does. And Ellen didn't have that. But I did. They thought they had taken everything from me. What they actually did was remove the only reason I had to protect them. And that changes everything. I didn't rush. That was the difference between reacting and winning. For the first few days, I watched. Quietly. The company's updates were public. Announcements, new leadership statements, small changes meant to show control. But underneath that, there were gaps. I started with the easiest point, clients. Not all of them. Just a few. The ones I knew. I sent simple messages. No drama. No explanation. Just, asterisk, if you need anything, I'm available independently now. Asterisk. Nothing more. Hours passed. Then one reply. Then another. By the end of the day, 3 had responded. Not with loyalty to the company. With trust in me. That told me everything. I didn't push further. Not yet. Pressure works best when it builds slowly. That night, I reviewed old deal structures. Weak agreements. Overpromised timelines. Clients already uncertain. I had patched those problems before. Now I didn't. Across the city, everything probably still looked stable. Controlled. Safe. But I knew better. Because stability isn't about what people see. It's about what's quietly holding everything together. And I had just started removing those pieces. The first sign came faster than I expected. A delayed deal. Nothing dramatic. Just a small update posted publicly. Rescheduled due to internal adjustments. Most people wouldn't notice. I did. That deal had been fragile for months. I was the one who kept it moving. Without me, delay was inevitable. I didn't celebrate. It wasn't a win yet. Just confirmation. I made another call. This time more direct. A long-term client. Zara, he said, surprised. I heard there's been some restructuring. I replied calmly. There was a pause. You could say that. I'm working independently now, I said. If things become uncertain, I can help. Another pause. Longer this time. I might take you up on that, he said. That was all I needed. No pressure. No persuasion. Just positioning. Later that night, I saw another update. A minor partnership under review. 2 small cracks. Nothing visible from the outside. But inside, I knew what it meant. Confidence was shifting. And once that starts, it doesn't stop easily. Across town, things were changing. Not publicly, but inside the house I left behind. Ellen sat at the head of the table now. That part was real. Control on paper. But leadership isn't paper. It's pressure. And pressure reveals everything. Why wasn't I told about this delay? She asked, her voice tight. My father frowned. It's a minor issue. It's not minor if it affects reputation, she replied. That word again. Reputation. They were starting to feel it. My mother stepped in. These things happen during transitions. Ellen didn't respond immediately. Because she didn't know how to fix it. That was the difference. Before, I handled these moments quietly. Now they were exposed. What about the Westline deal? She asked. Silence. My father glanced at the papers. It's being reviewed. That wasn't an answer. Ellen leaned back slightly. For the first time, uncertainty showed on her face. Not panic. Not yet. Just doubt. And doubt is where everything begins to unravel. I didn't stay small. That would have been a mistake. Within a week, I registered my own firm. Simple.
Clean.
Focused. No history. No baggage. Just structure. I reached out to more contacts. Carefully. Not everyone. Only the ones I knew were already questioning things. The response was steady. Not overwhelming. Better. Reliable. I secured my first independent deal by the end of the week. Then another. Nothing huge, but solid. Stable.
More importantly, mine.
Each deal built something the old company was losing. Momentum. At night, I tracked everything. Their delays. My progress. The shift was slow, but it was happening. I didn't need to destroy them. I just needed to outpace them. Because in this industry, perception follows results. And results were starting to change. They still had the name, the assets, the history. But I had something more dangerous. Understanding. And I was using it. It took 2 weeks for it to become obvious. Not publicly, but internally. Things weren't stabilizing. They were slipping. Another client paused a deal. Another partner requested revisions. Small things. But too many of them. Ellen noticed.
Of course she did.
She's involved, she said suddenly during a meeting. My father looked up.
Who?
Zara. Silence. My mother shook her head. She wouldn't. She would. Ellen cut in. That was new. Recognition.
Late.
But real. My father frowned.
She left.
She has nothing. Ellen leaned forward slightly. No, she said quietly. She has everything we don't. That landed harder than anything else. Because it was true. Across the city, I sat in my apartment, reviewing another signed agreement. My phone buzzed. A message from a former partner. Asterisk, we should talk. Asterisk. I smiled faintly, not out of satisfaction. Out of clarity. They were starting to see it now. Not the full picture. Just enough to feel it. The shift. The imbalance. And the mistake. They thought removing me would make things easier. They were just beginning to understand. It did the opposite. The call came earlier than I expected. I stared at my phone as it rang. Father. I let it ring once more before answering. Zara, he said, voice controlled. We need to talk. Not how are you. Not come home. Straight to need. I'm busy, I replied. A pause. This is important. They usually are. Silence stretched. There are complications, he admitted. That word again.
Clean. Vague.
Safe. What kind? I asked. Clients are pulling back.
Deals are slowing.
We need clarity.
We.
I leaned back in my chair. And you think I can give you that? Another pause. Yes.
Honest.
Finally. I let that sit for a moment. Then I said, I charge for my time now. The silence on the other end changed. Not confusion. Not anger. Recognition. You're serious, he said.
I've always been, I replied.
He exhaled slowly. We should meet. Send details, I said. I ended the call before he could respond. Not to be rude, but to set the tone. They weren't calling their daughter anymore. They were calling someone they needed. I didn't meet them immediately. Delay creates pressure. Pressure creates clarity. Instead, I sent an email. Professional.
Direct.
Consultation terms. Hourly rate. Conditions. No emotion. No history. Just structure. The reply came within minutes.
Short.
Agreed. That told me everything. They were already feeling it. When we finally met, it wasn't at the house. It was in a neutral office downtown. Glass walls. Clean lines. No memories. They were already seated when I walked in. For a moment, no one spoke. They were seeing me differently. That was good. You've made changes, my mother said carefully. Yes. My father pushed a folder toward me. We need you to review this.
Need.
Again. I opened it. Delays. Withdrawals. Unstable agreements. Exactly what I expected. You expanded too quickly without reinforcing existing deals, I said calmly. We followed the existing structure, my father replied. No, I said, looking up. You followed the visible structure. That difference mattered. Ellen spoke for the first time. Can you fix it? I closed the folder. Yes, I said. Then I added, but not for free. I didn't go back with them. That was important. Instead, I worked for my own office. My terms. My timeline. They sent documents daily. Contracts. Emails. Internal notes. The more I reviewed, the clearer it became. They hadn't just lost control. They had never truly had it. They relied on patterns I built. Processes I managed. Relationships I maintained. Without that, everything was reactive. Unstable. I sent back structured recommendations. Not everything. Just enough to stabilize certain areas. Strategic. Because fixing everything at once would have been a mistake.
For them. For me.
My phone buzzed later that night. A message from my mother. Asterisk, you could come back. We can make this right. Asterisk. I read it once. Then locked my screen. They still didn't understand. This wasn't about returning. It wasn't about fixing things the way they were. It was about control. And for the first time, they didn't have it. By the third week, the pressure was visible. Not publicly, but internally it was building. They followed some of my recommendations. The immediate damage slowed. But not enough. Because stability isn't just about fixing problems. It's about preventing them. And they didn't know how. Another client requested changes. Another deal stalled. I watched it all carefully. Not interfering unless necessary. Because every unresolved issue taught them something. Dependence. Ellen called me directly this time. Why isn't this working? She asked, frustration slipping through. Because you're reacting, I said. What does that mean? It means you're trying to fix outcomes instead of systems. Silence. Then quieter. Can you show me? I considered that. Then said, that's a different level of involvement. I understand. That was new. Understanding.
Late.
But real. I'll think about it, I said. I ended the call before she could say more. Because this wasn't just about helping anymore. It was about deciding how much they were willing to lose. Before they truly listened. The next meeting felt different. Not tense. Measured. They were waiting when I walked in. But this time, they didn't start speaking immediately. They were waiting for me. That was new. I sat down and placed my notes on the table. You don't have a client problem, I said calmly. You have a trust problem. My father frowned. Our reputation is built on consistency, I interrupted. And right now you don't have it. Silence. Ellen leaned forward slightly. What do we need to do?
Direct.
Focused. Better. I looked at her, then at both of them. For this to work, I said, you don't just need advice. They waited. You need structure. Oversight. Control. My mother nodded slowly. Then we implement that. I shook my head once. No, I said. I do. That landed exactly how I expected. Not as a suggestion. As a shift. My father's expression tightened. You're asking to come back? I met his gaze. No, I said. I'm setting the terms. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't theirs. They didn't agree immediately. I expected that. Control is easy to give on paper. Harder in reality. What exactly are you proposing? My father asked carefully. Operational oversight, I replied. Client management. Deal approvals. Internal structure. You mean authority, he said. Yes. Silence. Ellen was the first to speak. If we don't. I didn't hesitate. Then it continues like this. No threat. Just fact. My mother looked between us. And if we do? Stability, I said. Gradually. They exchanged looks. Not confident ones. Calculated ones. Finally, my father nodded once. Temporary. Of course, I replied. We both knew what that meant. Nothing is more permanent than something that works. I didn't smile. I didn't react. I just opened my folder and slid a prepared agreement across the table. Because I hadn't come to negotiate. I came ready, and for the first time, they were the ones catching up. Walking back into the office felt different. Not familiar. Not emotional. Controlled. People noticed. Of course they did. Whispers followed me through the hallway. Not disrespectful. Uncertain. That was better. Uncertainty makes people careful. My new office wasn't the largest, but it didn't need to be. Position matters more than space. By noon, I had reviewed active deals, reassigned responsibilities, and flagged critical risks. They had been reacting to problems. I removed that pattern immediately. From now on, nothing moves without review, I said during the team meeting. No one argued. That told me everything. Later, Ellen stepped into my office. You're changing everything fast, she said. I'm correcting it, I replied. She hesitated. I didn't know how much you handled. I looked at her briefly, then back at my screen. You didn't ask. That wasn't blame. Just truth. She nodded slowly, and for the first time, since all this started, she looked less like someone in control, and more like someone learning. Control reveals things. The more I reviewed, the more I found. Not mistakes. Decisions. Bad ones. Quiet ones. Buried deep enough that no one questioned them. Until now. I called for a private meeting.
Just the three of them.
This contract, I said, sliding a document forward, should never have been approved. My father frowned. It was necessary at the time. No, I said calmly. It was rushed. My mother leaned forward. What are you implying? I held her gaze. You were covering losses. Silence. Ellen looked between them. What losses? No answer. That was enough. I continued. You've been balancing unstable deals for months. Maybe longer. My father's jaw tightened. We managed it. Barely, I replied. The room felt smaller. He exhaled sharply. We didn't want to involve you. I almost smiled. Not out of humor. Out of clarity. You didn't involve me, I said, but you used my systems to hide it. No one denied that. Because they couldn't. And now, it was all visible. Information changes everything. Not just what you know, but what others realize you know. The dynamic shifted again after that meeting. They spoke less. Listened more. That was important. I restructured 2 major deals within days. Cut risks. Rebuilt timelines. Stabilized client confidence. Results followed quickly. 1 client returned. Another renewed terms. Small wins, but visible ones. The team responded. Efficiency improved. Communication tightened. Everything moved cleaner, faster, better. But I didn't fix everything. I left certain pressure points untouched. Deliberately. Because full recovery would remove urgency. And urgency was leverage. Ellen noticed. You could stabilize all of it, she said one evening. Yes. Then why don't you? I met her eyes. Because you need to understand it first.
She didn't argue.
Because deep down, she knew I was right. By the 4th week, the truth settled in. Not suddenly, gradually, like weight. They had control. On paper. But in reality, they were dependent. On me. Every decision passed through my review. Every major move required my approval. And they knew it. That was the cost. Not losing everything, but realizing they never truly had it without me. My mother approached me late one evening. The office was almost empty. We made a mistake, she said quietly. I didn't respond immediately, because words like that matter more when they sit for a moment. You didn't just make a mistake, I said finally. You made a choice. She nodded slowly. We thought you'd always stay. That you didn't need it.
Need.
That word again. I closed my laptop. I didn't need it, I said calmly. I chose it. That difference mattered. She looked at me carefully. And now? I stood up. Now, I said, I choose differently. I walked past her without waiting for a response. Because this wasn't about apologies. It never was. It was about understanding something simple. They thought I was weak. Because I never showed them what strength looked like. Until now. The offer came from my father. Formal. Careful.
Late.
We want to restructure ownership, he said during our next meeting. I didn't react. He continued, you'll have an official stake. Equal control.
Equal.
That word almost meant something once. And before? I asked calmly. Silence. He didn't answer. Because there was no answer that didn't expose the truth. My mother stepped in. We're trying to fix this. I nodded slightly.
No.
You're trying to keep this. That landed. Ellen watched quietly. Listening. Learning. I leaned back. Ownership now doesn't change what happened. It changes what happens next, my father said. That was the first honest thing he'd said in a while. I considered it. Not emotionally. Strategically. Because this wasn't about getting back what I lost. It was about deciding what it was worth now. I'll review it, I said. Not yes. Not no. Control means never rushing decisions. And for once, they were the ones waiting. That night, I went through everything again. Not the offer.
The past.
Every decision. Every moment I stayed quiet. Every time I fixed something no one noticed. Not out of regret. Out of clarity. Because understanding the past makes the future simple. The offer wasn't generous. It was necessary.
For them.
Without me, they wouldn't stabilize. Without stability, everything they protected would collapse. That was the truth. My phone buzzed. A message from Ellen. Asterisk, can we talk? Not about the company. Asterisk. I almost ignored it. Then I didn't. We met at a quiet place across the city. No documents. No tension. Just space. I didn't understand, she said first. I didn't respond. I thought things just worked, she continued. I didn't see what you were doing. That's the point, I said. She nodded slowly. I should have asked. I should have noticed.
Yes.
She should have. But that wasn't the question anymore. I'm not asking you to forgive anything, she said. Good, I replied. Because forgiveness wasn't what this was about. Understanding was. And she was finally getting there. The next meeting was short. I placed the revised agreement on the table. I made changes, I said. My father opened it immediately. His expression shifted as he read. This gives you controlling interest, he said. Yes. That's not equal, my mother added. No, I said calmly. It's accurate. Silence. Ellen didn't look surprised. She understood now. My father closed the document slowly. That's a lot to ask. I met his gaze. Then say no.
Simple. Clean.
Final. Because I didn't need the deal. They did. That changed everything. Minutes passed. Heavy ones. Then, we agree, he said. Just like that. No argument. No negotiation. Because they couldn't afford one. I nodded once. Then we move forward, I said. No emotion. No victory. Just structure. Because this was never about taking revenge loudly. It was about shifting reality. Until the outcome was inevitable. Control doesn't feel dramatic. It feels quiet. Efficient.
Clear.
Within weeks, everything stabilized. Not perfectly, but enough. Clients returned. Deals closed. Reputation repaired. The company survived. But it wasn't the same.
It couldn't be.
Because now everything ran through me. Every decision. Every move. Every risk. And everyone knew it. Respect replaced assumption. Awareness replaced comfort. Even my parents changed. More careful. More measured. Because they understood something they hadn't before. I wasn't the support system. I was the structure. Ellen adapted faster. She listened. Asked questions. Learned. That mattered. One evening, I stood in my office, looking out over the city. The same city I walked into with nothing. Now everything I built was visible. Not handed. Not given.
Built.
That difference stayed with me. Because it always would. People think strength is loud. It isn't. It's quiet.
Consistent.
Unseen until it matters. They thought I was weak because I didn't fight. Didn't argue.
Didn't demand.
But strength doesn't always show itself immediately. Sometimes, it waits. I stood at the head of the table again. Not the same seat. A different position. A different reality. Reports were laid out. Updates given. Decisions made.
Mine.
After the meeting, my father paused. We misjudged you, he said. I looked at him. Not angry. Not satisfied. Just aware. Yes, I said. Because there was nothing else to add. No speech. No reminder. The outcome spoke for itself. They gave everything away in one moment, thinking I'd be fine without it. And they were right. I was fine. Better, even. Because losing everything forced me to see clearly. To move differently. To stop holding back. They thought I was weak. Big mistake.